Mountaintops inspire leaders, valleys mature them. I came across that quote. I thought, God, that's a really good quote. And for me, it was about, leaders are at the top and they've worked their way to the top. Great in its strategy, but the tough work, the tough learning is very often in the journey and in the valleys. And I use an example of, a business owner that I work with, and their team was off. There was a bit of sickness and there was a bit of holiday, and he found himself in the office by himself, having to do some of the processing tasks that he doesn't usually get involved in. And that wasn't a problem. He's capable of doing that, knows what he's doing, but he realized just how clunky the system is that they use, because he had that real life experience. He came off of the mountaintop and went in the valley, got his hands dirty. And then he realized, and now he's working with his team to either bring in a new piece of software or update the software, work with the software developer to go, these are the problems we've got, can you fix them? And so it's about getting your hands dirty. And this is important for, and again, I see this with business owners, and I know a lot of you are business owners, where, and just a different spin on this is like, we don't get into business, like most of us don't get into business because we're finance people. I came from financial services, but I'm still not a finance person. Right? I got a passion and purpose to help people with life lessons and live a better life. That's my jam. But I see so many people and they go, oh, finances and the tax returns and accounting. That it's not their jam. It's not what they're there for. But I see people, they then get an accountant and they delegate all of that to them. They go, I don't know anything about it. Delegate it to them. The problem is they delegate not just the accountability for the tasks, they delegate the responsibility. But you can't delegate responsibility for that. You're still responsible as the business owner. How many times have you seen people, you've heard the stories of the business owner, oh, my accountant swindled me, or my accountant didn't tell me about the big tax bill, or the accountant did all this stuff and I didn't understand it. Come on, we've all heard stories like that. And it's not just fictional stories. It's like they're true stories. But it's because you weren't close enough. You don't have to understand it all, but you do have to still pay attention. You can't delegate responsibility for it. You're still responsible for it as the business owner, just like you're still responsible for the marketing. You might get somebody to do your social media, but that social media message is representing you and your brand. So you better be in touch with that. You better be the one that's giving them that information. You better, and you might be employing somebody, you might have AI do it. You better make sure that AI understands your brand and they're doing it in the right tone of voice and that you're sense checking stuff. You can't just, off you go. It would be lovely to be able to do that, but that's not really how it works, especially if you're in a small business. Like, you still got to pay attention. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to do all the tasks. Somebody else can be accountable, and technology can be accountable for the tasks, but you're still responsible for it. Don't delegate responsibility. Can't do that. But that's about you coming off your mountaintop and getting your hands dirty, right? Things, you set up your business so that it can operate without you. Brilliant. And things are going along. But don't think you can just stay in your ivory tower. Right? You see that in corporate. Ivory tower, lose touch with the rest of the business, and then they wonder why the business is all over the place. They wonder why people are unhappy, why the morale's going down, why their latest colleague survey, their scores have plummeted, and their customer satisfaction's gone through the floor. It's because they totally lost touch with the business, and they're off doing all these other things. Really important lesson. Be involved, still be involved. Work your way up the mountain. Brilliant. Learn along the way. That's how we do it. Brilliant. But don't be afraid of coming back down the mountain, because we got to understand what's going on in the fields, right? In the crops. Back to the farming analogy. What if the farmer you employed was doing the crops, but the crops weren't the quality that you needed? But they didn't know that, or they weren't so bothered about that, so they were throwing out, corn that wasn't particularly tasty and was a bit rubbish and was dry and right. And then your customers are going, what the heck's this? And then you've got a problem.